Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the ISE Experience podcast, brought to you by the ISE Ambassadors. This is Jackson,
This is Justin.
and today we're here with Kenny Marshner, our fellow ambassador, who's been great in joining us today to talk with us. So, what's up, Kenny?
How's it going? Thank you guys for having me.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. I got a good night's sleep, had a good breakfast, and ready here, energized for the day.
Great.
Nice.
Love to hear it. Thanks for joining us. So, I guess in today's podcast, we're going to talk about some general tips and stories about some internships Kenny's done because he's worked multiple summers for different companies, so I'm sure he has great insights and advice, and we can't wait to get into it.
Awesome. All right, so the first question we have for you is, could you state exactly what companies and departments that you worked for in your multiple experiences?
Yeah, so over the course of my collegiate career, I've had 3 internships. I had my first one after my sophomore year with Jabil in the summer of 2021. I was an information technology intern, but my specific role was in a data analytics, business analytics specialization. This was supposed to be in St. Petersburg, Florida, but this was during COVID, so what happened was our internship got moved remote. And then for the following 2 summers, I worked as a manufacturing engineer, as a manufacturing engineering intern at L3 Harris in Palm Bay, Florida.
Awesome.
So I guess one of my first questions is, for the first internship you had at Jabil.
Yeah.
It's a lot hard for a lot of people to kind of get that first internship, especially as a freshman going into sophomore year that summer. So I guess my question is, how did you find out about it, and what was the interview process like, and how'd you land that opportunity?
Yeah, so I found out about Jabil through the ISE Career Fair. No, excuse me, not the ISE Career Fair. The Career Showcase, yeah. So I was looking at the list of companies that were going to be there, and I set the filters to say industrial systems engineering is looking for sophomores for internships. And Jabil was one of those companies. I did more research about what the company is and does, was very interested, and I sent in my application online. So, and then I went through the interview process. I kind of started through the actual meeting with the recruiter. Keep in mind that this was an online career fair, so it was kind of
they queue up and everything.
Yeah. I just had a really good conversation with the recruiter. I went out of that conversation being even more interested than when I went in, and I got an email asking about an interview. It was with the person in charge of the internship program, and I did that interview, and then after doing that interview, I did a second round internship interview with 4 of the senior managers in the company, and that one was a little more, it was behavioral, kind of like the first one, but it was more specific behavioral acting in Jabil, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Of how would you handle specific situations in our company, and it's situations that people who work there deal with every day sometimes. So I did that, and then I got an offer. But at least preparing for it, I would say get involved. That's the very important thing. I was involved in the freshman leadership engineering group as a freshman and a sophomore, so I was able to get experience working with different kinds of engineering students, different kinds of people and different kinds of environments, and used a little bit of data analytics skills, which I will say having data analytics skills really makes you stand out as a candidate.
Is that something you talked about like in your conversation at the career fair?
Yes. We talked a lot about that. Even talked about how like data analytics was used in some of the projects, like how they used like computer vision and using data to determine like utilization in a parking lot or how they should lay out a parking lot. And especially it depends on who is also at the career fair as well with the analytics conversation, but it's there's a lot of good conversations that come from
Nice. Now, would you say one, like, because you had was it 2 or 3 roles technically? Because for L3 you returned there. Was it the same role?
It was the same role.
Okay,
yeah.
so for your, I guess, 2 roles that you had, was one particularly more technical than the other, or were they like equally like technical but in a different industry, basically?
Ooh. I would say the second point you said there, where it was still technical but in different ways. Because in manufacturing, something that's very important to note about manufacturing engineering is that you are, compared to other engineers, you're working on the floor with the product, making sure it gets built, and there's a different set of technical skills compared to something like if you're doing mechanical engineering or electrical engineering. It's still technical, but in a different way.
Right. Okay.
So, at least with my 2 internships, my first one, I was actually working in manufacturing, because in the whole process of creating a product, usually it goes design, and then after design, manufacturing, quality, and then you get into testing.
Gotcha.
And I worked in the first internship kind of like on the end of the manufacturing process, so I was working in manufacturing that was about to go into testing.
Okay.
So I was working a lot more with I was working on like kitting for testing kits, so coming up with like a inventory system using Excel a little bit, kind of like taking note of how people use the testing kits, and just kind of like from a more like a technical but also like a human factor standpoint as to like how often is this going to be used, where is this going to go. And then the second time around, I was actually doing the other way on that process. I was design that was about to go into manufacturing. So I actually did a lot more with 3D modeling software. I learned how to solder. That was a cool experience. Cool. And I was kind of doing more of the research aspect of manufacturing technologies to say, how can we take this design and make it a reality in a way. So it's designing for manufacturability.
Cool. Which, that's nice, you got to experience like both sides of the manufacturing process. Which side did you like better?
Oh man. I really don't have a favorite, to be honest.
No preference?
No preference. I think there's pros to each side. I mean, being able to see the design and go into manufacturing is cool, is because it's like you're bringing something to life in engineering, but when you test it, I'm not gonna lie, I was able to watch some of the tests on some of the stuff that I was working on in L3 Harris. That was just a cool experience to be able to see the end product and actually see the thing work that you're building. So I think I don't really have a favorite. I had a great experience both times.
Nice. Now, backtracking to things that help you land the role, you mentioned like the various different types of experience in terms of leadership organizations. Can you like pinpoint what exactly helped you in your interview experience with that?
Ooh.
Or was it just like a combination of you had like so many stories alongside with these different leadership organizations that they helped you whenever like a question was asked about a specific time where you failed or a specific time where you succeeded?
Like in the interview itself?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, basically what you're saying with having just a combination of experience with different things, because we all have many different aspects to our lives as people. We have, our education, our work, our family, our friends. For some of us, religion. It's important to kind of draw from a variety of experiences and to be well-rounded. I mean, at least for me, it was a lot of what helped me was because I was involved in a martial arts organization.
Gotcha. Okay.
I've been doing it since I was 8 years old. Not the same one. The college and before college were different ones, but I've been doing martial arts since I was 8 years old, and I actually was able to tell stories about having to run the organization in the middle of a pandemic when it first started. Like, it's being able to have that well-rounded experience is important, and as well as not just having the experience yourself, but also how kind of like tell it as a story. Storytelling is something that's really important in interviews, because it's kind of like an aspect of like public speaking where it's really engaging for your interviewers, or even for if you're just giving a presentation on your project or something. It really takes you a long way, and something that I actually recommend is come up with a story like you would answer in an interview question, or maybe even not. Just come up with a story in your head that's something that happened in your life that could be applicable to an interview, and just tell it to people sometimes. Tell it to your friends, tell it to your family, and understand like how, what do they think? What, if they're giving you advice, what advice is it, to be able to tell a story, an engaging story, and because it's ultimately for the company to learn about you and for you to learn about the company.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, because it's one thing to have, like, it's a good thing to, like, have a lot of different experiences and be involved with a lot of things, and of course that's good to, like, put on your resume, but, like, it's just one thing to, like, have it on your resume to get, like, that first interview or whatever, because it looks good, but they're going to ask about an interview or ask about a situation, so you have to also be able to, draw upon your experiences and tell a story, like you said, and, answer what they're looking for without just reading the bullet points on your resume.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So moving along, are there any like courses either that you took beforehand that helped you understand the aspects of the internship, or if it's like the other way around, maybe you learned something from the internship that helped you in your courses?
Ooh, I would say before the Jabil internship, I was doing more like data analytics, or at least the internship work at Jabil was more in the realm of data and business analytics. Data analysis for industrial applications in our major was a big help for that course, because it taught you how to, not only teaching you about like the fundamental aspects of stats, but also about how do you think about data, because you're supposed to also know how to code as well, some of what you learn in like a statistical background, and have large data sets to make inferences. That is something that's very important, I would say. For L3 Harris, I would say that human factors and ergonomics really helped, especially because when you work in manufacturing environments, something that is really important to have is like your communication and your people skills, because you're going to be working with a large variety of people. You're going to be working with people who are of different backgrounds or life experiences. You'll work with technicians, maybe you'll work with other kinds of engineers, maybe you'll work with directors who maybe they did do engineering but they don't actively in the day-to-day do it now. So being able to communicate in different people's languages from an engineering standpoint too, from being able to say, hey, green, look, this is a classic on the production floor, is green means good, yellow means something might be in trouble, red means we're behind or something's wrong. It's something like that simple is very important from like, and we learn that in a human factors, or in the human factors class. And then just generally also, because I was in manufacturing engineering, the production logistics specialization as a whole really helps you think about how, if you work in a manufacturing role, how the whole system of manufacturing works together, because it covers different aspects of how it works, as in like lean production systems covers the more production side. Quality control covers after to say, okay, did you make this right of what you produced? Facility planning, for example, covers honestly even before the manufacturing even a bit. How do you set yourself up to be able to do a good job in manufacturing? But I will also say something else that was important, and I don't know if this is an expected answer or not, is materials and elements of electrical engineering. It's something we take as industrial and systems engineers, even though it's not in our major. But if you're working in a manufacturing environment, you're going to deal, depending on what the end product is, you're going to deal a lot with the extra courses outside our major that we weren't learning, your circuits, your material science, your thermodynamics, so your accounting even, especially for a lot of our students who go into like accounting or finance type roles or in consulting, that information is just as important, because you have to know how to communicate that to engineers and communicate the engineering stuff to people who aren't engineering.
Yeah, I've heard people say ISEs are like a jack of all trades but a master of none.
Exactly.
Because you get all that variety of knowledge through like the different courses you have to take, like baby circuits and materials. So
exactly. When I tell family and friends like the different kinds of variety of courses that I've taken, they're kind of shocked that I like of what like the reach it would take of both in and out of engineering. So I even told my dad the other day that or he was working on a battery project back home, and because he's interested in like electricity and electrical engineering, and I was able to actually speak with him and understand what was going on in the battery project. So.
You don't have to be, you don't have to know everything about the topic or whatever, but like just like sounding like competent, like knowing what you're talking about, at least like surface level, like goes a long way.
Yeah.
So through all these experiences you've had, like, did they influence at all like what you might want to do after it's all said and done with school?
Yes and no, in a way. Yes, in the sense that it really helped me figure out that I really like the both the engineering and the business side of ISE, and that I like having a role that kind of fits both, where it's like both technical, but also there's a people aspect to it, and be able to communicate technical results, or being a how do I describe it? Being the point of contact between the technical people and people who don't deal with as much like technical work, or deal with the more business decisions. But I would say something else I learned is that engineering is, when we think of engineering, we think of sometimes people who are coding at their computer, or they're working on circuits or something like that. Like, it's technical. Engineering is really just a very fancy word for problem solving. It's not something that sets you off in one path. It teaches you more how to think.
Right.
And I think all the different variety of work that I did during the internships has helped me realize that that engineering can be anywhere. And it's just because you have an engineering degree doesn't mean you have to do an engineering job, or just because you're industrial and systems engineering doesn't limit you to manufacturing or IT. But it's more so that I've learned that engineering really is what you make of it.
I like that. Yeah, I definitely think engineers will never go out of demand for a job. That's part of why I, was interested in engineering, also because I liked STEM topics and stuff, but just also knowing, there's always going to be a need for them, for those minds and problem solving and creative abilities.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree.
So, looking back, was there anything that you wish you could have done differently throughout your different internship experiences, or would you say that it pretty much, I don't want to say met your expectations, but aligned with whatever you were comfortable with?
I guess the one thing is I think I should have asked more questions overall. I think I did ask questions during the internship, or during all the internships, but there's also so many people who work at these sites who have interesting jobs. They have interesting backgrounds and life experiences, and that there's so many different people who know so much and who are maybe experts in certain machines or certain processes, or maybe they're the head of this department, or maybe they had a very similar career path to you where, for example, they were a ISE student and then they are working in the same job role that you are now interning as. So I would say it's very important to ask questions, be curious. And that's one of the most important things in an internship is be curious. Learn about the people around you and the environment that you're in.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes as an intern it might be scary just to, talk to a middle-aged, 50, 60-year-old engineer.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, you might think they're just kind of burnt out or whatever, but really they want to talk to you, they want to tell you about their experiences and give you advice, so you should always just not be afraid to go up and start a conversation.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you on that. I mean, everyone that I've asked for advice or help has always been very helpful. No one's ever said, no, I don't want to help you.
Exactly.
That's never happened.
Yeah, so it's never bad to ask questions in a role like that. And it also making connections doesn't hurt either, because connections are good, and especially early on, just making as many connections as you can will pay off in the future, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess the last question that we have, what advice do you have for students who might want to work in a similar role as you?
Ask questions.
Ask questions. That's a good one. I would ask questions. I would say make sure you do your research in whatever role or environment you're getting into. You don't have to know everything off the top of your head from the moment you walk in. They're not going to quiz you and be like, what is Kaizen?
Yeah.
But always know that you can ask for help too in the role. As for getting the role, though, for at least getting a manufacturing engineering internship or getting something in IT, is try and find either classes or experience that helps you kind of gear yourself in that direction. Or at least get some kind of outside experience going in. One of the reasons that I actually got interest from L3 Harris was because I actually was in TSA in high school, Technology Student Association. And I talked about to my eventual boss that
nice.
I would 3D print. I would make these like trebuchets that could launch like a cantaloupe into a field, and that experience, especially because it's manufacturing, you're building it from scratch, and that helps too with getting the at least kind of understanding what people who are doing this for a living are doing, and even if you don't have any set like previous experience, there's people who I've met over the summer where they had extracurricular experience in either electrical, or they were electrical engineering interns or mechanical or test, and they didn't really have the experience like doing that outside the classroom, but they did have a lot of curiosity. They had a lot of interest and they were driven. So don't freak out if you don't have that outside of the classroom experience, but just go after something that you're interested in and curious and want to learn, because that's the biggest driver in succeeding in an internship.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's some solid advice. Like, especially, I think the combination of like being like interested or passionate in that like area, so that you can like show that you're passionate when like talking to recruiters or whatever, but also like knowing about the company itself and like being able to relate that passion into like what you could be doing for the company.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up our interview. Thanks, Kenny, for joining us and imparting some wisdom on our listeners.
No problem. I appreciate y'all having me, and thanks for your time.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.